the general rule is that those who die from karet die young. Doesn't mean that whoever dies before 60 has karet, but it does mean that whoever has karet dies young. Now, another question: isn't karet a more severe form of punishment? It is more severe than heavenly death. It is more severe than lashes. It is more severe than paying a fine. But karet is less severe than death penalty. And by the way, there is a way to avoid karet. Let's say a person desecrated Shabbat without witnesses. Now he's going to have karet, chas v'shalom. All he needs to do is to do teshuvah. All he needs to do is say, Hashem, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I'm not going to do it again. And that's it. He becomes cleansed. Whereas with death penalty, it doesn't work. With death penalty, the person needs to do teshuvah, but he has to undergo death penalty anyway. Now, this paragraph that we read about Shabbat was put after the construction of the Mishkan to teach us what labors are forbidden on Shabbat. Now, verse 18 brings us back to the giving of the Torah. The discussion of Shabbat connected to the Mishkan was after Yom Kippur, but from verse 18 and on, we are speaking about from the moment when Moshe went to heaven, to the Har Sinai. He spent 40 days there, and at the end of 40 days, Hashem gave him the 2 stone tablets. And in chapter 32, we describe what happened down on earth when the Jewish people were waiting for Moshe and they were counting every day. They knew Moshe is supposed to come at the end of 40 days, but they made a mistake. They thought that they should start counting the first day when he went up as day number 1. However, that was a mistake because they needed to count full days, which means they had to start counting from the night. From the night and into the next day is day 1. They already counted the day he left as day 1, and at night it's already day 2, so they miscounted by 1 day. Chapter 32, page 493. The people saw that Moshe had delayed in descending the mountain. 40th day came according to their calculation, and he still didn't come. They waited for half a day. It's noon already, he's not coming, but he's really supposed to come tomorrow. And the people gathered around Aharon and said to him, Rise up, make for us gods that will go before us. For this man Moshe, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what became of him. We're on page 495. The Jewish people are scared. They are alone in the desert without a leader. What's going to be? Who is going to speak on our behalf to God? They became scared. They are panicking, and they are attacking Aharon. Save us. We need an intermediary. We lost the GPS signal. We need to know where we are, where we're going. Aharon said to them, Remove the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, sons, and daughters, and bring them to me. Now, Aharon is playing along, because as soon as they heard this, Hur, the son of Miriam, sister of Moshe, he stood up against the people and said, What? You want to build a statue? That it should be as a god for you? Or intermediary to access God? Don't do that. He stood up against them and they killed him. In fact, it was not the Jewish people, but rather the Erev Rab. Erev Rab is a group of people from other nations who saw the success of the Jews in Egypt, that God is protecting them and they are about to leave, and they said, Wait for us, we want to go with you. And they converted, but for wrong reason. And therefore now, as soon as they feel worry, they go back to the original ways of idol worship, and they tell the Jews to make an idol. And when someone stands up against them, they kill him. When Aaron saw that Hur, his nephew, was killed, he started thinking, what should I do? If I stand up against them and tell them that you're not allowed to serve idols, they might kill me as well. And then they're going to have a triple sin. Not only they serving idol, they also killed Hur and they also killed me. I don't want to let that happen. So Aaron said, I'm going to trick them. I'm going to tell them to go to their wives and ask them for their gold rings, earrings, and go to their sons and daughters and ask them for their gold earrings. And it's going to take days until then Moshe is going to come. However, he was surprised. Verse 3, the entire people removed the gold rings that were in their ears. The man didn't bother asking their wives or children. They knew they're going to say no, or according to some, they actually asked, and the women refused. They said, I want to have nothing to do with the idol. Leave me alone. And so the man took their own earrings, their jewelry, and they brought it to Aaron. They brought them to Aaron, and now Aaron is stuck. What should I do? I asked them for gold. I thought it's going to take time, and it didn't. And Moshe is still not here. What should I do? Now someone is asking question. Is it wrong for Aaron to do such a thing? And maybe she should have asked God. So it's very difficult for us to judge another human being, especially of the stature of Aharon HaKohen. And therefore we have to see what the Torah says about him. And the Torah says that yes, Hashem was upset at Aharon. And part of the reason that Aharon died ultimately and did not go to the land of Israel was because he participated in the construction of the golden calf. However, Aharon really was not guilty because he had good intentions. He tried to wait until Moshe comes, and then people will calm down, and this way peacefully everything will be settled. But Satan, the prosecutor, influenced the events in such a way that nothing that Aharon did worked. He took the gold and he said, what should I do now? He said, I'm going to pretend I'm doing it, but it's going to take time. He took it from their hands, bound it up in cloth, which is very interesting. Why is he putting it in cloth? And fashioned it into a molten calf. How can you fashion it into a molten calf when it's inside the cloth? Doesn't make sense. So what really happened is that Aaron tied it up, all this gold, heavy gold, probably a whole ton of gold, and he threw it into fire. And he told the Jews, don't worry, first we need to melt it, all these rings, when they're all in one glob, then we will cool it down, then we will shape it, and we will carve it, and we'll work on it, and chisel it. And as soon as he threw it into the fire, surprisingly, it got fashioned into a molten calf. What happened? The Midrash says that there was one man who brought with him a piece of pottery upon which it was written Ali Shur, which means rise up or ox. Where did he get this pottery? This pottery was made by Moshe himself. When Moshe was given the task to bring the bones of Yosef and the brothers out of Egypt, he said, where are the bones of Yosef? And the coffin of Yosef was put in the Nile River. It sank deep in Nile River. And Moshe approached the river and he said, how am I going to get the coffin out of the river. I don't even know where it is. So he took pottery and he wrote on it, Ali Shur, rise or ox. Why? Because Yosef is called ox by Yaakov Avinu. Before Yaakov died, he gave every tribe a blessing. And he named them, he referred to them by different animals. For Yehudah, he said, you are like a lion. For Binyamin, he said, you are like a wolf. For Naphtali, he said, you are like a deer. And for Yosef, he said, you are like an ox. So symbolically, Moshe wrote, rise or ox, and he threw it in the river, and out of the river floated the coffin of Yosef. Moshe picked it up and carried it with him. But there was one man who saw what Moshe did, and he dove in and he got that piece of pottery and he brought it with him. Now, when Aharon threw the gold into fire, expecting it to take time to melt and then to cool down and to shape it, this man, he pronounced incantations of black magic and he threw the pottery in. And since the message on the pottery was rise up or ox, miraculously, through the black magic, the ox just rose up that same second. And Aharon was surprised again. What he thought will take days took just seconds. And they said, who are they? They means the Erev Rav, the false converts that incited the Jews to do idol worship. This is your God, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt. Now the real idol worshipping starts. These false converts, the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, are giving a wrong message to the Jews. They're saying, Jews, look, this is the God. This is what brought you out of Egypt. So Aaron saw what's happening. Now someone is asking a question. Could it be possible the man was hoping to inspire people and have them remember Yosef, but people saw idol of Egypt? It could be, but the Midrash speaks critically of this man. It says that he actually wanted to do this. Now Aaron saw what's going on. He saw that the people are believing the Erev Rav and they're going crazy and it's not possible to stop them. So he again pretended to go along with them and he built an altar before him. He pretended that, yes, let's do it together. But in the meantime, he's trying to take time. Aaron called out and said, a festival for Hashem tomorrow. And here Aaron gave them a double message. On one hand, he told them, wait, let's not sacrifice to this idol today. Let's go to sleep, it's late, let's wake up tomorrow, and after breakfast we will celebrate our new idol. But he had a second message, and he said a festival for Hashem tomorrow. He didn't say to this God, he didn't say to this idol, he said for Hashem, because he was hoping that by tomorrow morning Moshe will come and they will actually celebrate for Hashem. However, he made a mistake again. He was surprised again. Verse 6, they arose early the next day. Again, they means the Erev Rav. It means the rabble, the mixed multitude, the fake converts. They woke up before Moshe came and they offered up elevation offerings and brought peace offerings. And only then the people sat to eat and drink. Only then they decided to eat breakfast. Not like Aharon thought. And they got up to revel. They got up to dance and to do other sins. And now at this moment, verse 7, we see what's happening in heaven. Hashem spoke to Moshe, go, descend, for your people that you brought up from the land of Egypt have become corrupt. They have strayed quickly from the way that I have commanded them. Now on page 497. Verse 10, Hashem tells Moshe, now desist from me, let me go, don't hold me. Let my anger flare up against them, and I shall annihilate them, and I shall make you a great nation. So Hashem says, Jewish people are guilty, they deserve death penalty. I'm going to destroy all of them, men, women, and children, and I'm going to save just you. And I'm going to start from scratch. You're going to become the new Avraham, and from you the new nation is going to come. Verse 11, however, Moshe is dedicated to the Jewish people. He loves the Jews. And Moshe pleaded before Hashem, his God, and said, why, Hashem, should your anger flare up against your people, whom you have taken out from the land of Egypt with great power and strong hand? Why should Egypt say the following, with evil intent did he take them out, to kill them in the mountains and to annihilate them from the face of the earth? Relent from your flaring anger and reconsider regarding the evil against your people. Moshe reasoned with Hashem and said, Hashem, it doesn't look good on you. You performed the miracles and took them out from Egypt, and now if you kill them, Egyptians are going to think that you had this idea all along. The only reason you took them out is to kill them, that they're guilty, that you don't love them, that you use them as a scapegoat. You just wanted to kill them. Or they're going to say, elsewhere we learn about another argument Moshe gave, that people will think, yes, you were stronger than Egyptians, but when you came to the nations of Canaan, you were not stronger than them, and because you couldn't fulfill your promise, you felt bad, embarrassed, and that's why you had to kill the Jews. That's what the nations might say. And therefore Moshe said, Hashem, you're stuck with the Jews. You have to keep them, because otherwise the nations will misinterpret the events. They will not think that the Jews transgressed, rather they will think that you were not powerful enough to bring them to Israel. Verse 14, it worked. Hashem reconsidered regarding the evil that he declared he would do to his people. Hashem told Moshe, I will not kill the Jews right now. So Moshe quickly turned and descended from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand. Tablets inscribed on both their sides. Miraculously, they were inscribed on the one side and on the other. And some letters were hanging in air, because they were inscribed from both sides. For example, a letter that's a circle, like a samech or a closed mem, the inside is stone and all around is empty space. How was it suspended in there? As if magnetic levitation, it was miraculously just hanging there. The tablets were God's handiwork, and the script was the script of God engraved on the tablets. Now, we're at page 499, verse 19. It happened as he drew near the camp and saw the calf and the dances, that Moshe's anger flared up, and he threw down the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. And our sages say the reason Moshe did it was because he said, there are 2 reasons offered. Because Moshe said, if I bring the tablets to the Jews, it's as if the covenant is sealed, as if I delivered the Torah, I delivered the instruction, and they're not listening, and therefore they will be guilty. So I will withhold from them the instruction, I will withhold from them the covenant, and then perhaps they will not be obligated to uphold it. That was reason number 1. The reason number 2 was that it was not by Moshe's choice. As Moshe was carrying these huge, heavy stone tablets, he didn't feel their weight, because the inscription of God was on them. They became spiritual, and the letters, the spiritual letters, held them up, and they did not weigh anything. However, when Moshe saw the Jewish people sinning and worshipping the idol, the spiritual letters flew up, and the stone tablets turned back into heavy stone, and Moshe just couldn't hold them. And he just let go and they smashed. Now verse 20, what does Moshe do? He took the calf that they had made and burned it in fire. First he melted it to destroy the shape of it. Then after he cooled it down, he ground it to a fine powder. And he sprinkled it over water. And he made the children of Israel drink. He took water, sprinkled the golden powder, mixed it, and gave each Jew to drink. And every Jew that worshipped idol died. And every Jew that didn't worship idol, the water did not harm him. Now verse 22, Aaron explains. Now someone is asking a question. We see that Moshe changed Hashem's mind and appealed to the character trait of mercy of Hashem and convinced Hashem, while Aaron was trying to pacify the crowd. So that is true. There are two forms. Sometimes you have to stand up and fight like Moshe did. He took the idol, he destroyed it, and now we will see how Moshe killed every person who's worshipped the idol, whereas Aaron tried to pacify people. Of course, if you have the power, you can do it with strength, you should do it. And on the other hand, Aaron is teaching us that if you cannot do it head-on, collision, just don't have the power for it, then you cannot give up, then you have to find another way of achieving the result. Now, Aaron explains to Moshe, let not my master's anger flare up. You know that the people is disposed toward evil, especially with the Erev Rav among them. They said to me, make us a God that will go before us. For this man Moshe, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what became of him. Aaron explains to Moshe that Jewish people were not trying to forget Hashem. They were not trying to make a new deity. All they wanted is just someone who will lead them in place of Moshe. They knew Moshe is not God, he's just intermediary, and they built a replacement for Moshe. Moshe, in verse 25, saw the people that it was exposed, for Aaron had exposed them to disgrace among those who rise up against them. Now, we turn to page 501. Moshe takes control. Moshe stood at the gateway of the camp and said, whoever is for Hashem, join me. And all the Levites gathered around him, because the Levites did not worship the idol, none of them. And Moshe said to them, let every man kill his brother, every man his fellow, and every man his near one. That means Moshe commanded the Levites to find those who served the idol with witnesses and to execute them. The Levites did as Moshe said, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. Now here we see that out of a nation numbering 3 million people, only 3,000 men actually served the idol. That is 3,000 out of 3 million. That gives us 1/10 of 1%. Only one person out of 1,000 served the idol. So here we see that vast majority of the Jews were righteous and they did not participate in it. It was mostly Erev Rav and some individual Jews here and there. Now, in verse 30, and by the way, this is why the Levites were chosen to be servants of God, to be the Levim and Kohanim, because they didn't serve the idol and they were willing to risk their life to go and kill the idol worshippers. Verse 30, on the next day, Moshe said to the people, you have committed a grievous sin, and now I shall ascend to Hashem. Perhaps I can win atonement in the face of your sin. Now Moshe went up for another 40 days, asking Hashem to forgive the Jews. Hashem forgave them just enough that they shouldn't be annihilated immediately. But Moshe knew that the punishment is still hanging over their head. Hashem just gave him a little bit of time to go and fix the problem and see what he can do. Verse 31, Moshe returned to Hashem and said, I implore, this people has committed a grievous sin and made themselves a god of gold. And now, if you would but forgive their sin, but if not, erase me now from your book that you have written. And now someone's asking a very good question. 99.9% of people did not commit the sin. So why such a severe punishment? In fact, our sages say that every calamity that fell upon the Jews since then until now for 3,000 years had a little bit of the punishment of golden calf in it, whether it was pogroms, Holocaust, persecutions, exiles. And the answer is because Hashem judges the Jewish people to the highest standard possible. And he says, even if you don't do the sin, but people around you do the sin, it means that within you, spiritually, mentally, you had a weakness. You were not dedicated 100% to the truth, to God. And so, because the rabble, the troublemakers, the lowest of those among the Jews committed idol worship, it shows that among the true Jews there was a certain weakness in their commitment to God. So it became a fault of the entire nation. Now, Moshe says, erase me now from your book that you have written if you don't forgive the Jews. And Hashem said to Moshe, whoever has sinned against me, I shall erase from my book. And on the day that I make my account, I shall bring their sin to account against them. This is the source that every punishment in the future that came upon us carries within it the punishment for the golden calf. Verse 35, then Hashem struck the people with a plague. And we don't know how many people died there. Now, chapter 33, Hashem spoke to Moshe, go, ascend from here, you and the people whom you brought up from the land of Egypt, to the land about which I swore to your forefathers. We're on page 503. Verse 2, I shall send an angel ahead of you, which means I will no longer lead you. Now it's going to be an angel. Now the divine presence will withdraw. Verse 4, the people heard this bad tidings and they became grief-stricken and no one donned his jewelry. The Jewish people mourned. They removed their jewelry. They were crying. Verse 7, Moshe moves his tent from inside the camp to outside the camp to show the Jewish people that Hashem is upset with them. And since Hashem said that the divine presence will depart, in order to still be able to speak to Hashem, Moshe had to separate himself and be on the outside of the camp. Moshe, verse 7, Moshe would take the tent and pitch it outside the camp. Whoever sought Hashem would go out to the tent of meeting. Verse 9, when Moshe would arrive at the tent, a pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and God would speak with Moshe. Verse 11, Hashem would speak to Moshe face to face. We're now on page 505. As a man would speak with his fellow. And now Moshe asks Hashem for some favors. Verse 12, Moshe said to Hashem, now I'm going to skip a little, verse 13, and now if I have indeed found favor in your eyes, make your ways known to me, so that I may comprehend you have found favor in my eyes. Moshe is asking Hashem, please let me understand your ways. Let me understand why do righteous suffer and why sometimes